You've died 1,000 times. In games, a stray bullet, a wrong jump, a boss you could never beat. The screen goes red. You died. And you don't even flinch because you know a button is coming. Respawn. You tap it without thinking, and you're back at the checkpoint like nothing ever happened. But in real life, you get one life, one death, no button. So what if that rule just broke? What would actually happen if humans could respawn? The answer changes everything you think you know about your body, your meaning, and whether you're even the same person who woke up this morning. Let's start with the part that sounds like science fiction, but isn't. Because before you ask what respawning would do to us, you have to know that nature already built it. You've always been told death is a law, non-negotiable. The one appointment nobody misses. That's not quite true. In 1961 at the Wistar Institute in Philadelphia, a scientist named Leonard Hayflick discovered something unsettling. He took ordinary human cells and let them divide in a dish, and every time at the same point, they just stopped, between 40 and 60 divisions, and no more. It wasn't random, it was a counter. Your cells are keeping score. Every division burns a little off the end of your DNA, tiny caps called telomeres, and when that number hits 0, they quit. We call it the Hayflick limit. A death clock, wired into you. At the cellular level, you are, in a very literal sense, running out of copies of yourself, so death is built in. Case closed, except for one animal that never got the memo. Off the coast of Japan, a biologist named Shin Kubota keeps a tank of jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii, barely the size of your fingernail. And when one of them is starving or injured or just old, it doesn't die. It reverses. Its adult cells transform back into a baby polyp, and it starts its entire life over from the beginning. Kubota has watched the same jellyfish do this again and again since the 1990s. One of them did it 10 times in 2 years. As far as anyone could tell, it can do it forever. That's not immortality in a lab. That's a respawn button. A real one. On a real animal. Right now. So death isn't a law of the universe. It's a setting. And in at least one species, that setting is already switched off. But here's where the dream starts to come apart. Because if you could flip that setting in humans, if you could turn death off, you might destroy the one thing you were trying to protect. You think you'd be happier without death. Free. Fearless. You wouldn't be. And there are 40 years of psychology experiments that show exactly why. In 1986, 3 psychologists, Jeff Greenberg, Sheldon Solomon, and Tom Pischinsky, proposed something they called terror management theory. It built on the work of an anthropologist, Ernest Becker, who argued back in 1973 that almost everything a human does is a defense against one single, unbearable fact, that you know you're going to die. Since then, more than 250 experiments across 14 countries have tested it, and the results are consistent and strange. In one of the first experiments in 1989, the researchers gave the death reminder to actual municipal court judges, then asked them to set bail for a woman charged with prostitution. The judges who'd been reminded of death set a bond dramatically higher than the ones who hadn't. Same case, same law. The only difference was that some of them had just been made to think about dying. That's how close to the surface it sits. When you quietly remind someone that they will die, everything changes. They cling harder to their beliefs, they defend their group more fiercely, they want to build, to matter, to leave something behind. The fear of dying is the hidden engine underneath your ambition, your art, your faith, your need to be remembered. Every cathedral, every book, every child named after a grandparent. Terror management theory says it's all one thing, a wall we keep building against the dark, and there's a deeper mechanism underneath that. In 1979, psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky proved that humans feel loss far more powerfully than gain. Everything you treasure is precious precisely because you can lose it. A moment matters because it ends. Now imagine a world where nothing can be lost, where every death comes with an undo. A world of infinite respawns is a world where nothing is ever really at stake. Death isn't the thing stealing meaning from your life. Death is the thing that hands it to you. The respawn button wouldn't set you free. It would quietly delete the reason to do anything at all. But there's one last problem with respawning, the biggest one. And it isn't about the world, it's about you. Because even if we solved the biology, and even if we survived the meaning, the person who respawns might not be you at all. In 1984, a philosopher at Oxford named Derek Parfit asked you to imagine a machine. You step in. It scans every atom in your body, records the exact position of everything that makes you, and then it destroys the original and rebuilds a perfect copy somewhere else. Same memories, same fears, same voice. That copy wakes up absolutely certain it's you. It remembers stepping into the machine. But here's the question Parfit couldn't shake, and neither could anyone after him. Is that copy actually you? Or did you die in that machine, and a stranger with your face simply walked out, believing your entire life was theirs? That's what a respawn really is. Not you, coming back. You, being deleted and replaced by something that can't tell the difference. The saved version isn't rescued, it's overwritten. And every version it produces is convinced it's the original. And if that sounds like an abstract puzzle, look at your own hand. Almost every atom in your body will be swapped out and replaced over the coming years. The you reading this is already a copy of the you from a decade ago, rebuilt cell by cell, holding the same memories like a save file passed between machines. You never notice the handover. You never do. Which is exactly the problem. Which brings us to the part that should keep you up tonight. Because there's exactly one place where respawning like that already works, flawlessly, all day long. A video game. In 2003, a philosopher named Nick Bostrom laid out an argument that a sufficiently advanced civilization could run simulations of reality, so detailed that the people living inside them would never know. And if that's even possible, then statistically, we're more likely to be inside one than not. And in a game, death isn't the end. It's a reload, a checkpoint, a respawn. So ask yourself something you've never had to ask. Every single night, you lose consciousness completely. The lights go out. And every morning, someone opens your eyes wearing your memories, certain they're the same person who fell asleep. You've always assumed that's continuous, that it's you, but you have no way, none, to prove you didn't simply respawn this morning. From a checkpoint, you would remember it exactly the same either way. You thought respawning was the fantasy. It might be the mechanic you're already running on. We call it death, and we treat it like the enemy, the thing to defeat, to cure, to cheat. But what if death was never the glitch? What if it's the only thing that ever made any of this real? The price tag that turns a life into something worth living, instead of a level worth farming. You've died 1,000 times in games and tapped respawn without a second thought. But now you know what that button would actually cost. A jellyfish in a tank in Japan that simply refuses to end. A fear so deep, it built every cathedral you've ever stood inside. And a copy that wakes up every single time, completely certain that it's you. So the next time a screen asks if you want to respawn, and your thumb moves before you even decide, it'll remember that somewhere, something might be asking the exact same question about you. And you would never, ever know that it happened.